and what it looked like in its first cohort, what it looked like in the first go round. So some folks may know, others may not, but this is an idea that has been circulating around the industry for quite a while, mostly through, I think, Jeff and I, with the constant insistence that how is it in new markets tax credits and community development finance that even in this industry where we're working in low-income communities, mostly Black and brown communities, that we seem to lack the representation of professionals in our industry. And so, you know, a number of us have been pretty plagued and worried by this phenomena. And then about 2 years ago, I will say Jeff had an idea to do something about it. And he approached Novogradac to have a conference session on the lack of representation of Black and Latinx professionals in our industry. And from that first convening, we sat down at a bar at one of the conferences and wrote down on a napkin, quite frankly. We call it the napkin concept because we basically planned out or thought about what would be the best course of action to increase the representation in our industry on a napkin. And we worked with some, I would say, early board of advisors, and not to miss anybody, but certainly including Kermit Billups and Randy Kahn from Greenline, Will Turner from Wells Fargo, Shamika Gladney from Enterprise, and Jose Villalobos from Telecu were some of our early thought leaders in helping to frame this. And then COVID happened and everybody quarantined. We kind of went to our own corners, and then George Floyd was murdered. And we sat down and said, you know, if not now, then when? This is the perfect opportunity, even through quarantine, we can figure out how to make this work. And so what we have now put together through the help of an amazing amount of sponsors and an amazing support from our sponsors, we've put together a program that consists of 3 legs, if you will. It consists of program workshops in new markets, tax credits, LIHTC, historic tax credits, and opportunity zones through Novogradac. It includes on-the-job training through sponsors who were gracious enough to offer internships. And it also includes mentorship and networking opportunities, because we know this is a mentoring business, and the best way to increase the representation is for folks to know that we exist. We started with also a partnership with Project REAP. For those folks who may not know, Project REAP has a long history of onboarding Black and Latinx professionals in the real estate industry, and we leveraged their networks to source talent. We also leveraged their back office operations, their brawn, if you will, to help us to work on best practices for launching this effort. And then finally, we partnered with Novogradac very early on, who was gracious to offer, as I mentioned, webinars as well as a conference attendance for each of our fellows. And so I want to give this sort of pledge to this ask to our fellows. If you have not signed up for a conference yet, maybe you know, there's one coming up in June. You don't have to sign up for that one. Maybe you're waiting for an actual in-person conference, because that one will be virtual. But please don't neglect to consider signing up for a conference. And so what does the first cohort look like? The first cohort looks like 12 women and 11 men, all college educated, many of which have advanced degrees. They're all across the United States. One of the things that COVID has been helpful for, or quarantine anyway, is that, you know, everybody's on Zoom, everything's virtual. These are working folks, many of them, full-time students, parents, many of them. We've got entrepreneurs and corporate professionals and people who are a blend of both. And we've got Black and Latinx professionals who want to learn more and be a part of the community development finance space. A little bit of overview on the internships. So because of the generous support from our sponsors, we were able to source 23 dedicated paid internships with 18 organizations that include CDEs, consultants, a bank, and an accounting firm, Novogradac. We also received financial donations, and I want to say an amazing thank you to all of our financial contributors: JP Morgan Chase, US Bank, PNC, Citibank, Greenline, Monge Capital, NTCIC, Advantage Capital, Dudley Ventures, Nova Gradic. Please forgive me if I've missed anyone. But I also want to give a certain recognition to those early adopters, those people who came in early and helped us to raise additional money. And those included Nova Gradic, US Bank, NTCIC. So thank you to our sponsors, thank you to our fellows, and thank you to our program manager, the amazing Miss Claudia Diaz, who has helped us all look good both on paper and on Zoom. So before I kick it off to Jeff, I want people to be sure to stay around after we finish with this part of the program. We will be breaking out into networking sessions from 7 to 7:30. There'll be 2 of them, 15 minutes each. So with that, I'd like to kick it off now to my co-founder, Jeff Monge.
Hi, thank you. Thanks a lot, Gina. I really appreciate it. We're going to jump right into this. We have a special guest, Margaret Anadu from Goldman Sachs, and she is the head of sustainability and impact. Margaret and I think we go back probably about 8 years or so. And I just want to make sure that I have Margaret available to us. Margaret, you're able? Oh, right, there you go. Let me get your face. So Margaret and I, interesting enough, we met in the New Market Tax Credit Arena. Margaret, I believe it was at Chicago Bears Stadium, Soldier Field out in Chicago. It was raining. It was at a networking event, and Margaret was with her colleague, a couple of colleagues, and we started talking. I saw this dynamic. I'm older than Margaret, so I could go ahead and say this. Young, dynamic woman. And she was telling me about all the things that they were doing. And she was telling me these stories about her grind at Goldman Sachs. And Margaret, I'm going to embarrass you right here because I think it's important. She told me a great story about how she was working so hard on a deal, she slept at the office, you know, and she actually sat under a desk, but, you know, so the grind is
haven't we've all slept under a desk, right? Is that just me? Oh no.
The grind is real with Margaret. So Margaret, and you guys could obviously read her bio. What got you into community development finance, and importantly, on top of that, who were your mentors?
Gosh, I have so many mentors. You're one of my mentors. So what got me into it? So I had an upbringing that spanned Lagos, Nigeria, which is where I was till I was 10 years old, and really witnessed poverty on a scale that's just that you don't forget. It certainly doesn't leave you. And then my family moved to the US. I spent my kind of high school and middle school years in Houston, Texas, right outside the 5th Ward. For all the hip hop fans, this is where, like, Bushwick Bill and the Ghetto Boys are from. And while there was a lot that I, loved about my neighborhood, right? We're all, proud where we're from, super poor. Like we didn't have great schools. There weren't, glistening grocery stores and beautiful parks and, lots of job opportunities. And certainly I was young, so I couldn't say that I understood every piece of it or even knew what community development was, but I was certainly that kid who was from a poor neighborhood and understood that what my neighborhood was like and the opportunities that it offered was certainly very different than the neighborhood I was bussed across town to go to high school. So that was sort of just always in my mind and always, a part of me. And so, skip forward, get to college, think I'm going to be a lawyer actually. And so I'm like, shit, I'm broke. Like, how am I going to afford to go to law school? So ended up at Goldman with this, very clear plan. I was going to save up a bunch of money. I was going to get these big bonuses. Then I was going to, use it to go to law school. And then I was going to, change the world by being a lawyer at the Violence Against Women office in DC. I had it all mapped out. And I kind of like something clicked for me around finance because it wasn't something I studied in school. I was a computer science major, and it just hit me that the flow of capital determines, for better or worse, everything, right? What businesses get built, what startups get to grow, what housing gets built where and why, and who gets to do it, and what neighborhoods get what. And so I was like, it was a big aha moment. I was like, I love finance, I love structuring, I like, working with clients to solve issues. And I just had to figure out how to get that to really direct that to what I cared about. And so after spending 2.5 years or so at Goldman in sales and trading, basically slang and derivatives, we could have a whole nother conversation. I could have predicted the financial crisis, but I didn't. I was actually able to transition over to the urban investment group at Goldman. And it was like, the sky opened up. I was like, I get to work in finance, deploy capital, work on deals, and do that in a way where I can impact neighborhoods, just like the one in Houston that I grew up in. And so, I didn't know exactly where it was going to take me or what it was going to look like. This was back in 2005. I guess 16 years later, here I am, and it's been the best career. I tell everyone, I pinch myself. I can't believe I get paid to do what I do, because it's absolutely phenomenal.
So that segues to one of the things that I've been saying of late about being intentional, right? And that's something that I've seen you in your career. Anytime that there was something happening and Goldman was on it and it was complicated and a lot of folks didn't think that it could happen, there was Margaret working on this project. So talk to me about that, because a lot of times you have these products that you have to put them in a box perfectly.
Yeah.
But that's not the type of deals that you've tended to work with, and make things happen in the past. So tell me about, the fact that you are an intentional investor.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the thing that hopefully, people appreciate about community development is it's really hard. Like the deals that we do are not for the faint of heart, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? If it was so straightforward, right, someone else would have done it, or we'd have more of it, right? So it's not totally surprising. But part of that, I mentioned I was a computer science major. I enjoy structure. I like challenges and things that seem like they're impossible. But part of it is just like I'm naturally really stubborn. Like in this field, you will have the developer that says, oh, it's not going to work, we can't do it that way, or the housing agency, or the 7 subsidy programs you're trying to make work together. And so there's a lot of knitting together. And sort of, it's like whack-a-mole, like you fix one problem, then there's this other structural issue. But I think what drives that is that the stakes feel high, right? And I can even think about some of the deals that Jeff and I have had the pleasure of working on together. That if you sort of, take your chips and go home and say, what, fine, this deal isn't going to work, it's going to die, we can't pull it together, then like a formerly homeless family is not going to have a home, or a community facility that, a group has been trying to put together for like 10 years isn't going to happen. Or, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about urban health plan, or a community that has had like no quality healthcare in decades is not going to have it. So the stakes are high. And I think that, if I were, financing luxury condos or, trading coal, like the stakes just might not feel that way. And so I think that in this work, you have that extra drive, because that at the end of the day, even if it's like 75 lawyers on the phone and it's, you're 2 years into trying to make a project work, that when you get to the other end of it, that's, the impact is real, and it matters. And so I just try to think about that all the time. Like I try not to get lost in the legal docs and the org charts, but sort of stay focused on the end goal, which is really important.
And and you mentioned an urban health plan, and it's one of my first deals. I don't know if you know this, but it was one of my, matter of fact, it was my very first deal that I closed, and it was something that we did with Goldman Sachs, which I
I
appreciate.
didn't know that, because Jeff,
Yeah.
what you told us was that it was your like 75th deal. So
When I was talking about my old
yeah.
job.
No, I'm just kidding.
But what was interesting about that time was that I came out, I was on my own, and the first two clients that I had was Alianza Dominicana, Dominican-owned led ran organization, and Urban Health Plan was a Puerto Rican-led organization, and then I had Goldman Sachs, and I had folks of color working with me on this deal. It was such a perfect time for me in my career, and obviously here I am 11 years later. But I say that because over my career, you have been, and Goldman, but you in particular have been very supportive of many organizations, companies, professionals of color, and which and a lot of, I'm not going to get into people that were small and now are huge companies, that type of support. Can you talk about the importance of professionals of color and even companies of color in this space, and what it really means, what it should mean or does mean to community development finance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gina really touched on this in her comments. I think, I'll take it broader and then bring it back. I think the lack of diversity that we suffer, because I do think I'm not trying to be dramatic, I think we genuinely suffer from it across the board in corporate America is just deeply unacceptable. I do think there's something that is particularly nefarious around it in, what I'll call, real estate, community development, the built environment, whatever you want to call it, because as we think about what are we trying to solve, where are we trying to get to, right? And an equitable economy where everyone can participate. We're trying to get rid of the racial wealth gap. We're trying to, eliminate gender disparity. And one of the places that has the most significant power to make a difference, the built environment, neighborhoods, right, where we see and feel and access our opportunities, that's one of the biggest levers that we have to really make change. And so to not have the communities that we are trying to serve represented in that work, it's a big problem, because, and I feel this very strongly, like Puerto Ricans know what problems Puerto Ricans have, and they know how to solve it, and they know what they want to see in their communities. I feel that way about all sorts of demographics, Black people, low income people, whatever we're trying to work on. Like, you have to center their voices and their desires and their, solutions in that work. And so, I've always wanted and desired and thought it made the most sense for us to have, of course, as a diverse set of partners as possible. And that's on the development side, that's our, the consultants, that's the lawyers we work with, right? That's everyone around the table, because I think it makes for better decisions and better answers and better solutions. And so that's part of why we've worked with a lot more diverse partners than others. The other thing, and this is just, right, my network is more diverse, right? I'm not the, I really, even worse than real estate and community development, like I pick on venture capital, right? Like I'm not like a, 24-year-old like grad from Stanford who's like building the next disruptive company in my, garage. Like the people that I know and, I connect with, and my friends and family, are just a more diverse set of people. And so, it's not like when I think of a really complicated deal that I know we're going to want a really great partner on, I don't think like, oh, let me call Jeff, he's a person of color and he'll understand this in a different way. I think, let me call Jeff, he's the best. And I know Jeff because that's, my network is just more expansive and more diverse in that way. So, I think it's really important. I'm proud of our track record, but, I'll be honest, even Goldman, we can do more, we can do better, and we will.
So it's I'm glad that you, and I appreciate the compliment, but I will make it very, very clear. If I didn't know what I was doing, you wouldn't be calling me because I'm Puerto Rican. you know. So to that end, right? So we have a lot of folks that have really, it seems like discovered community development finance industry. Like it was staring them in their face, obviously in their communities, but this is an awakening for them. So how do you transition and become relevant in this industry?
You know, do the work, sleep under your desk. I mean, you know, I think that there's no, I was actually on a call with someone earlier today who said something that was actually, it was a real estate developer. You know, they were talking about their track record and they're like, you know, the only real way to know how to build is to build. So you have to pick a place and you have to start, you know? So you know, I started in this field when I was 20, I guess 24, 25. You know, I was you know, analyst, taking orders, living in the model, you know, staying up all night. So I think you just have to do the work and get in. And I would say one of the things that's great about this industry, and it's also what's one of the fun pieces about it, there's so many different avenues. Like in every single deal, there's, you know, the person at the housing agency, actually there are like 5 people from the housing agency, and there's the, you know, the new market CDE, and there's the lawyer, and there's the architect, and there's the not-for-profit, and there's so many different ways to get at it. And you also see people move around, you know, people who, you know, 1 second they're at HDC and then they're at Wells, and then, you know, then they're at, you know, they're running housing for the Robin Hood Foundation. Like there's so many different ways to play. And so my advice would be like, don't overthink it. Like just get in. Because then you also have to be at the table to then see everyone else's different roles and understand, you know, like where can I play this best, you know, et cetera. So, you know, I think you just got to get in. Just get in wherever you can, regardless how junior it is, regardless of what role it is. Just you got to get in the game, and then you kind of really just sort of sort it out from there.
Now, you know, another thing that was interesting, you know, that came up with a couple of folks, and I know that, you know, you've seen it in your roles that you've played over the last several years, is this whole thing about bringing resources to low-income communities, but then the potential of actually creating gentrification issues. So can you speak a little bit about that? You know, how do you protect the community? Not even about can you, because I know that you have some thoughts, I'm sure. How do you protect the community from gentrification when you're trying to help them with different resources?
Yeah, so this is, we could talk alone, you know, we could talk just about this for hours. I think, you know, I'll say this. One, I'll be transparent. There are no easy answers or solutions there. I think, you know, just stepping back to pure supply and demand, right? Once you create more value in communities and make them better, more amenities, you know, better sidewalks, plant trees, add the grocery store. When you do all those things, anything in the world that you make better.
Goal.
Okay. Right. Anything that you make better.
Whoever has their microphone on, please. Mute. That's Randy. Can you do that for Randy, Claire?
Yep. Sorry.
All right.
Awesome. I want to be where he is. So anything that you make more valuable, better, et cetera, like by natural private market forces, it would be more expensive. People want it more, supply, demand, like fairly straightforward. So off the bat, there's nothing we can do purely as a private sector actor without public sector assistance there. And there are some interesting models, like, you know, there are communities out in California where, you know, they've frozen the property taxes for people who've lived in a community before, you know, X date. So there are different solutions. As a pure private sector player, we've at least drawn boundaries. So one, we will never, ever, ever, never will buy a building and displace tenants. Like the whole strategy of like, you know, let's roll the tenants over 7% a year and then let's transition to market rate. We have no interest. We would never do it ever. You know, the other things around sort of where you focus. So we believe very strongly in mixed income housing. Like if we want to, create socioeconomic diversity in communities, well, one of the best ways to do that is actually building by building. So we feel, very strongly about mixed income housing. We try to do it, as much as possible. And then the other thing, and this seems small, is we tend to be developing assets in spaces, lots, places that are underutilized. So, thinking for, Newark, New Jersey, where, I know Jeff has done a lot of work, we have as well. A lot of the work we've done, we're just on big, sprawling, open, empty parking lots in the middle of a downtown. Well, of course that should be housing. Of course we should attract more people to live there, and new businesses. So I think from a private sector perspective, you just have to draw your lines and know what you will or won't do. But I want to be real, clear and transparent here. Without public sector involvement and forces, gentrification is really, really difficult to avoid and prevent.
I agree, and so one of the things that another thing that we've all been talking about in different ways, and you've been hearing about it left, right, and center, is we're in a very, very unique situation, and I never thought, even myself, I never thought that I was going to be around to see this, and unfortunately people had to die, in order to, for us to be in this time. People have said, and I actually get this from Jim Simmons, and I think Jim Simmons. Jim Simmons said, "Well, is this a movement or is this a moment?" Right. So how do you make sure that this is more of a movement than a moment?
So and I think this is the question we're all asking. So first, I'll say this: if it's not a movement, what would it take? Right? I don't know that the set of facts we have now, which of course is just the painful things that we've witnessed, right, that in our community we've always witnessed, but now other people are waking up to it as well. Just the fierce ripping open of so many of these disparities that have been in communities forever, just completely exacerbated by the pandemic. I focus a lot on Black women for obvious reasons. I think we're super women. Even just one of the things that was so painful in the jobs report from, I can't remember, it was January, February, but literally you had unemployment decrease for every single demographic in the US except for Black women, right? Disproportionately the service workers, the hospitality workers, the public sector workers. And so I think there's nothing else we need to see. There's no more data. We don't need to watch any more videos. If people don't understand the disparities and the complete and utter lack of resources cumulatively for decades in our communities, I don't know what it will take. So that said, I'm optimistic, and I think this is a movement. And the types of conversations that I've witnessed, and this is less my community development hat, but just some of the client set that Goldman has, our investment banking clients. We're advisors and investors and partners to some of the largest and companies, sovereigns, governments in the world. And even the level of conversation and interest and openness that I've witnessed over the last year has been encouraging. Now, there's a lot that we need to see. I'm also obviously very encouraged by this this administration. Some of the, I think everyone saw even just simple things like, the child tax credit in the last bill that could literally cut child poverty in half. Well, guess what? That's a very significant and disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. So I think that there are a lot of forces right now. I think we have a pretty progressive federal government. I think we have the attention of corporates and the private sector. And I think what we need to do is just not take the gas off the pedal. You can already see, and I noticed some of my colleagues talking about, race and the inequities a little less. I'm like, remember what we said? Remember how focused we are? Remember these goals? Remember all these plans? Well, let's get at it. So I'm optimistic, but we all have to stay focused and stay on it.
So I've been seeing you, and it's pretty exciting because I'm telling my family, I'm like, look, that's Margaret again. I'm seeing you in all these news channels, and that's you know, I'm a huge cheerleader for you. Can you talk about a couple of the initiatives that you're working on now in your new role?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I teased a little bit at one. One of the things I'm super excited about, we about a month ago now announced a new initiative called 1 million Black women. And so it's a $10 billion investment strategy to narrow opportunity gaps for Black women over the next decade. And like, let me tell you, the thought that Goldman Sachs, right, like, you know, premier financial services firm, like I think typically people don't associate us with Black women, would be saying and standing up in a very, you know, loud and proud way that we think one of the clear investments that is both smart and right and good that we need to be making today is in Black women. Like, that's a moment, at least for me. And the narrowing of the opportunity gaps, we're focused on really like the key pillars that drive economic prosperity and wealth creation in the US. So that's housing, of course. I don't need to, you know, explain to this crowd. Educational attainment, healthcare, workforce and wages, digital connectivity, and financial health. And so we will be investing across all of those spheres in a really intentional way, where with each investment, whether it's real estate, a company, a lending facility, we say, what is the impact on Black women? How many Black women are you serving? How is what you're doing contributing to the progress of Black women in this US? And that is, I can't tell you what that like means to me and what that feels like. Because it's one thing to do community development. It's another thing to say, no, I'm focused on this group in this way. And so it's really exciting. We're only a month in. We got like $10 billion to invest and 10 years to go. So, you know, we expect that work to evolve and change and get better. And we're doing like really cool research along the way. So that's one thing I'm really, really, really excited about. Oh, and then another one, actually, this is we launched this a few months ago. It's our HBCU Market Madness. So we made a $25 million commitment to HBCUs around the country. We're doubling our hiring from HBCUs. And so we started with 125 scholars, brought them into the firm, gave them a scholarship and a stipend, and really just, you know, expose them to all the different parts of finance, you know, similar to what, you know, Jeff and Gina are doing here with just exposure to fields and, you know, getting people more engaged, really bringing those HBCU students into a Wall Street firm to just, you know, see if it's something where they could see themselves and see themselves starting a career. So, you know, it's both the external and the internal, right? That HBCU program is about, you know, our own diversity, everyone at our firm, and how we can really drive change. And then the 1 million Black women, right? That's more external. How can we invest in real innovations around, you know, healthcare, education, housing, et cetera, that really are the important infrastructure for Black women and their families. So lots of exciting stuff.
All right, so I'm gonna end this off, you know, because you know, this is gonna be my last question for you, and this is coming from a mama's boy, right? You know, and I saw, you know, a lot of us, you know, had our moms that got up in the morning, worked, came home and cooked and did everything that they could to take care of the family unit, and made their sacrifices. I've had the pleasure of getting Christmas cards with your beautiful kids, you know, one at a time. So, and obviously you have the pictures in the background. How can you possibly do all this and still be a mom and of beautiful children and make it happen?
Yeah, you know, this is a terrible answer. God, I shouldn't share that. You know what, whatever, I'll be honest. So I got this piece of advice, actually, and it was not about motherhood. It was about, I think it was like, maybe when I was promoted to like associate or something at Goldman, and there was this guy and he gave his whole theory of what he called rotating selective disappointment. And so basically it's basically the idea that like, you're not going to every day be like the best boss and like the best soccer team mom and the best like not-for-profit board member and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to like disappoint selectively, you know? So I am never the perfect mother, wife, boss, colleague, board member, et cetera. But I try to like rotate around who's mad at me. So, you know, I do my best. My kids are like the most important thing, but oh God, I'm gonna get like emotional, sorry. Like, but it's also important for me to demonstrate to them that I am not only working, because like someone's got to pay the bills, right? But also that like I am doing as much as I can and working as hard as I can to create like a better, like just like the kind of world that's just what I want them to live in. And so we talk a lot about, like, even when my daughter was 2, you know, she'd be like, mommy does impact investing. And, you know, she knows what that means. And she's been to, you know, I took her to one of our, you know, developments in Long Island City. So she, you know, understands like we're building buildings and we're, you know, creating places for families to live. So I'm not perfect. It's hard to be. I'm busy. I sleep under the desk sometimes. Like it all works out, and you know, hopefully they'll be all right. Either way, they're so cute.
And that they are. Well, so you know, I know that we have some folks asking questions, but and I know that Margaret actually has some time that she actually has another obligation, but I'm gonna take one.
You know, it's actually, now I feel like I can admit, now you ask my kids go to bed at 7. So it's just so I can like see them before they go to sleep. It's not some big thing. It's just my kids.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to start off with you know, let me tell you something, Margaret. I look like the man, because we already had talked about you know, having someone come, and you know, and I was like, Margaret, you know, I'm going to reach out to Margaret and see if she would, you know, she would bless us with her, you know, coming here. And then Jaquise, one of our fellows, she said, well, how about Margaret? And I was like, well, let me see what I could do. And then I was like, boom! Yeah, so I look really. So I'm gonna let her have the first question. So if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, Margaret. I'm so like on the spot. Thanks, Jeff. But super happy to meet you. Had read an article about you in Cranes and just fell in love. So that's not weird, but it's just, I really admire your career path. So
I love you too. I love you. We're in love.
Thank you for that. My question was, small businesses and low to moderate income communities can sometimes struggle with like longevity and or sustainability and scaling. And I was wondering if the companies you work with that are doing this investment and development in smaller communities, if they are, or you're working with them to provide tools such as technical assistance or business tools to ensure they can maintain long-term success. And that just comes from my experience with seeing it in our communities, where someone will come in, but may not have the operational background to really scale and grow or maintain their business. And I just think it's an important thing, because the real estate is there, it's great, but you want to, I think, a good mix of mom and pop and, you know, larger brands to provide some stability. So are those tools available at all, or do you all work with the companies to hope that they do that for the community beyond just the commercial real estate investment?
No, it's an excellent question. So one, I mean, you hit it right on the head, right? So the sustainability of small businesses, and this is especially for Black and brown owned businesses in our communities, there are a few things that are really important. There's of course access to capital, which, you know, in the same way we talk about, you know, real estate and developers and all those, there's significant access to capital issues with the small businesses that we work in. And then importantly, it's also around that education. So if you can imagine, you could be like, you know, the best empanada maker that's ever happened, and you built a business doing that. But like, did anyone ever take the time with you on how to like hire and fire people, you know, develop a business plan? Like, how do you go after contracts is a big one. And so we developed an initiative, gosh, this is 12 years ago now, called 10,000 Small Businesses, where we partnered with local community colleges. So we work with LaGuardia Community College here in New York. And it's almost like an MBA boot camp. And we're real respectful, right? Because business owners are busy running their businesses. And so it happens on, we do it over like 8 Saturdays, I think, just like a half day. And we go through these modules that are just like, you know, boot camp on legal, like this is how you apply for a city contract. This is how to, you know, apply for a loan. And so like to provide that education. And then importantly, of course, the access to capital we deliver through community development institutions and minority depository institutions. So we've been doing that work for 12 years. As you can imagine, over the last year, like it's never been more important. So we went from doing probably, I don't know, 50 million a year of small business lending. Over the last year, we did 1.25 billion to get people their PPP loans, you know, new capital to scale, you know, restaurants, just even if you can be open, you got to buy all the plexiglass to like put between people. So, so you're right. So we do as much as possible, then try to connect our 10,000 small businesses initiative, because we have it in, you know, New York, Chicago, Houston. We're in like, I think 20 cities across the country with our real estate work as well. Cause you're absolutely right. It's not just the capital, it's also that education mentorship. And so we have that. Oh, and actually this is exciting. So it's called 10,000 small businesses because we had a goal of getting to 10,000 small businesses. We reached that in November, and then we re-upped and we just committed to do another 10,000. So it's been a huge success and really, really important work.
Thank you.
Who do we have next, Claudia?
We have Christine. If you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Margaret. It's so funny. I actually met you a couple of weeks ago at U of M when you were talking with William Bryman about evolving things. So nice to see you again. But I guess I just had a quick question is that, you know, oftentimes we really don't aspire for positions where we don't see people like us. And so throughout the course of your time at Goldman, were there like mentors that you like reached out and was like, hey, you are my mentor? Like, I guess, how did you move along this path, you know?
You know, I have had, honestly, I've had incredible mentors. You know, one of the women who has been most impactful, actually still, I actually was like crying at her 2 weeks ago about something, is Debbie Wright. So this was been like, honestly, I feel so blessed and so lucky. One of the hardest transactions, actually, to Jeff's point, actually, you know what's funny? This might've been one of the first deals I slept under my desk. We worked to recapitalize Carver Bank back in 2010. So after the crisis, you know, we went from something like 130 Black-owned banks down to, I think now we're down to about 20, which is very, very sad, obviously, for a whole lot of reasons. And I got to work with her on that transaction. And this is also a little bit of a piece of advice in there. I worked my ass off on this deal. Like I put my like foot, soul, heart in that deal. And she, you know, I think she recognized that and she appreciated that. And so I developed a relationship with her. And you talk about, you know, this whole thing, like you can't be it if you can't see it. Here was a woman who, you know, started on Wall Street in the 80s, you know, ran the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, you know, was the CEO of Carver Bank. She was on the board of Time Warner. Now she's on the board of Citibank. Like she, to me, is like, you know, like I bow at her feet. And so she was someone that I looked up to, you know, for a long time and was able to watch her career. And certainly, like, I'm probably not going to aspire to Debbie Wright heights, but if I could even get like a third the way there, I'd be like, you know, I can call it a life. So you do have to pick out those people and really see it, because you know it can, being a woman of color on Wall Street can certainly be lonely. But I do think all it takes is to really say, like, look, if she did it, even if 100,000 people didn't do it, like I can do it too. And so yeah, there are other women who've been really, really impactful for me as well. But Debbie certainly takes the cake.
And Debbie's my old boss, and when I found that connection, and she's one of my mentors, and so she's if you guys don't know about Debbie Wright, please look up Debbie Wright. You know, she's a living legend. Claudia, do we have an opportunity for one more? Is that?
Yes, we have an opportunity for one more. We don't want to keep Margaret up too late. So next question is coming from Desiree. Desiree, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Margaret. It's so great. Thank you so much for being here. Your story is very inspirational. So my question is, I know that Goldman, is putting a lot of money into community development, increase in financing for Black women. And I wanted to know, what is Goldman doing internally by way of hiring more diverse candidates, more women, more Black women, more Black men, and especially being able to promote those from within to senior executive levels at the organization?
Yeah, so that's, I appreciate the question. So we've done a few things, and look, I think that a lot of times we've had these stops and starts. Everyone's like obsessed with diversity. It's the big focus, and everyone's really excited about it. And then you get distracted, and there's the other thing or the other priority that you have to do. And so, I think people sometimes debate like quotas, are they good or bad? Like, shouldn't we just like fix the system and we'll hope to get there? Well, I feel very excited that Goldman has finally stopped debating that with itself, and we now just have clear targets. So we, and this predates kind of 2020 and everything that we've been going through, but we have a clear target that by 2025, we have to have, 11% of our analysts and associates coming out of undergrad and business school have to be Black. And so that's, and we have targets around, Hispanics and women and all those things. What's really important, because that's a relatively small part of the overall population of the firm. The big move that we made more recently is to also require that our vice president population, which is effectively like the majority of the firm, also has targets around Black hires, Latinx, and that's both in the US and the UK. So one, we just now have clear targets. We've been public about them. And then yesterday, for the first time, we released a people report, which actually shares literally by title in each office how our demographics break down. And as you can imagine, we're not pleased with the numbers. They're not where we aspire to be. They're certainly not where we want to be. And so there's something about transparency and accountability and measurement and just being open about it that drives progress, right? You don't manage what you don't measure, and you don't, aspire and meet the targets that you don't set and set them publicly. So I would say that's the biggest change we've made. I mentioned earlier, a lot of, we're doubling our hiring from HBCUs and things like that. And I think that's going to be very helpful. But most importantly, we've set targets, we've set dates by the time that we have to meet them, and we'll meet them.
Well, Margaret, I really, really thank you for the time that you spent with us. In one of my emails, I said to you, I said that, you're a intentional social warrior. And it's so I get a little emotional because I'm all, the reality is that when you have someone like you in the position that you're in, you have the ability to make so much change, and it's for my kids, for my kids' kids. So Godspeed. Really, really appreciate your friendship, of course, and all the support that you've offered Monge Capital and the community as a whole. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna go cry. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you, Margaret.
I'm gonna pass it over to Gina.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but I think we're going to catch up. That was wonderful. We wanted to give Margaret a little bit more time. So now we're going to talk about one of the many assignments, if you will, or ideas we had was to do a networking challenge, because we wanted people to get to know each other and to be incentivized to do that. And so we are, as you can see, some of these pictures are some examples of the folks who did this networking challenge virtually. And we have a winner. The winner, before I announce the winner's name, will win a virtual coffee with Miss Rosa Martinez. Most people know Rosa as the Associate Program Manager at the CDFI Fund, but prior to that, Rosa spent 9 years at the Ford Foundation working with a variety of portfolios from rural poverty and resources to women's rights and economic opportunities and program-related investments. Rosa received a BA in economics from Hunter College, CUNY, and received a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship for minorities in public policy to attend graduate school at the Gerald R. Ford School of the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. So Rosa, you're on, right? I know Rosa is on. I saw her there. But if she can't take herself off mute, we'd love to now announce that the winner of that challenge is Anika Wright. So yay, virtually, yay. So Anika, if you're near, she wasn't sure if she was going to be near internet access. So if she is, then Anika, please feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, there she is. Awesome. So would you like to share a few words about your experience with the program?
Absolutely, and thank you guys. And my background might be loud. I try to get to the quietest place that I could from where I am right now. So just bear with me if it does get a little loud. But thank you everyone for your congratulations. And I really enjoyed this experience. You know, I was at Advantage Capital throughout the past 3 or 4 months we've been in this fellowship. And I worked primarily with the data and the impact teams, and I was reviewing the survey data to find new ways to quantify impact and to just review and make sure that the data collected was correct and complete. And then I also helped formulate new survey questions that's going to be used to measure racial equity for a new fund that's dedicated to minority business owners. So that was some of the work that I've done, and it was actually really impactful for me and helped me learn about how, you know, to prove that that the money that's being invested is really helping these areas and helping these business owners. I also worked on a couple of ad hoc projects with partner services team, and I was helping to optimize CDE and quality reporting tools. That I like that those projects. It kind of reminded me of the work that I did when I was still working. I'm currently doing my MBA right now, so it was a nice break to do some work that wasn't like homework or anything like that. One of my favorite things about the fellowship really was the networking challenge, because it allowed me to really break out of my comfort zone and reach out to people. And I was able to learn more about people's backgrounds and learn about what they were working on in their fellowships. And I think I made a lot of long-lasting connections with a lot of people. And it was really a great way to encourage us to engage with one another during the pandemic. Overall, you know, I really enjoyed my experience, and I would definitely recommend the program to anybody. This was my first introduction to community development finance and impact investing, and it really helped me figure out like where I want to take my career next after I complete my MBA. And it has helped me get a whole new network of professionals in the industry, and people have been so helpful and so supportive during the whole fellowship. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And I would definitely love to thank Jeff and Gina for the opportunity.
Thank you, Anika. That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'm sure you will enjoy your time with Rosa. So at this point, Jeff and myself would like to congratulate all of our 23 fellows. Claudia is going to put on the screen all of the various fellows and the fellowships and the internships that they participated in. But we'd like to congratulate everyone on having either fully completed or in the next couple of minutes, quote unquote, we'll have completed all of the requirements to fulfill this experience and what we were looking for. In terms of next steps with the program, we plan to issue some press releases, so people should look for that. As a part of our program, we provided some impact data reporting that we expect to report on as well in the next 90 days. With the support of Monge Capital, we are looking to launch a website that will highlight both the fellows as well as the program, in addition to a LinkedIn group, because we'd love to stay connected with all of our fellows in the entire ecosystem that we've built here. And we absolutely expect to launch this again this time next year. This timing seemed to work for most folks, a little rushed around the holidays, but we'll try to work on that. But we like the Martin Luther King start date, so we'd like to do that again. And finally, from Gina Nisbeth, I would like to say a very warm thank you to every person who's on this call, and those folks who are not, for everything that you have done. Congratulations to our fellows. And Jeff, do you have some final words?
Yeah, the only final word that I would like to offer is, a thank you to you, Gina, and and obviously Claudia. We spent weekends on Zoom and FaceTime and all this and putting in the time, but I really appreciated you as a colleague, as a friend, and now trying to do something as impactful as this. So I want to thank my teammates.
Mutually appreciated, Jeff. Great. So now Claudia is going to take us into the breakout rooms. We hope you hang around for networking.
Yes, this is our thank you slide to our sponsors. Once again, thank you very much for supporting our initiative. And let's go ahead and do some breakout rooms.
Who's going to sing while we wait?
Go.